Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good after midnight, whatever time you're watching this video. Welcome to another episode of Greg Blends, and in today's episode, we're helping another stranger. So I was cruising through r/blender, and I saw Pale Pork Chop asking, need help with texture painting. He says, I'm trying to make a wool Yoshi, and apart from some UV matte fixing, I just need to change the color of his eyes, shells, and boots, but can't figure out how to do it. I've tried different combos in the shader editor, I've tried separating parts and adding a new material. I'm just stuck. I'm still very new to all this, and any criticism is greatly appreciated. So I said, send me the file and I'll make a video showing you how to do it. He said, I really appreciate it. You're a lifesaver. And I'm at work. I'll send it as soon as I'm home. And I said, well, I have work today, so I'll make it tomorrow night. And Space Trash Panda says, this is a perfect example of how unbelievably awesome the Blender community is. Guy asked for help with a project, and a complete stranger, me, offers to make a video explaining everything he needs. I tip my hat to you, sir. Well, thank you, Space Trash Pandas, and thank you for your Reddit award. So, without further ado, Pale Pork Chop did send me the files. I have everything I need here. So let's fire up Blender and try to make this a quick episode. So, I'm going to first open the project, but I'm going to go up to the settings icon and uncheck Load UI because I don't want to use his version of Blender's UI. I just want to use my own. So, we'll do that. And here is his scene. And he said, I'm still very new to all this, and any criticism is greatly appreciated. Well, criticism you shall receive. So it looks like what he's done here is he's created a, I assume HP stands for high poly. So it looks like he did a sculpt. It is, in fact, very high poly. But for a beginner, this is an excellent sculpt. I remember when I was a beginner, sculpting was super hard. And, it's a little bit lumpy in a couple places, a few lumps here and there. But with time, with practice, that will all go a lot smoother. So not bad for a sculpt. And then it looks like what he did here is he created a low poly. And if we click on this object, it looks like he has a mirror modifier as well as a shrink wrap modifier on there. And it looks like he's doing a retopology because when we go to this one, we can see that there is a lot fewer vertices. So that's really good that you're doing a retopology already. I know a lot of beginners are very afraid of retopology, but looks like you got the right idea trying to do retopology. It looks like he's marked some seams here, so I'm going to split my editor here, and we're going to get our shader editor so we can look at his material. And then, of course, I'm going to also bring this over here and get our UV editor. So when we select everything, looks like he has a UV unwrap. I'm not going to worry too much about the UV unwrap. This looks serviceable. I think this should work. I would probably have done it a little bit different, but the scope of this video is for texture painting, so I'm not going to get into those details. One thing I should mention is that this is my second time helping someone, and the second time I've done a Yoshi. In this video, somebody was saying they wanted help with the retopology workflow, so I did a 2-hour video retopologizing a woolly Yoshi. And the reason why I offered help, other than just to be nice, is I thought it's funny because this guy's making a woolly Yoshi from scratch. And I did a woolly Yoshi, but this was a 3D scan of the amiibo. So if you skip through this video, you can actually see me retopologize this Yoshi from scratch. So if you haven't seen this video, go ahead, check my channel, and you will find the retopo of this Yoshi. But today, we're not going to be retopologizing. Instead, we're going to be texture painting. Now, there's a couple things I want to fix up here. So I did notice there's a little bit of a mistake in the geometry. You can see how when the object is just in solid mode, there's kind of these lines here. And, well, if you move the Yoshi, things get crazy. But why are those lines there? Well, it looks like there's some overlapping geometry. So I'm going to turn off this mirror modifier for now. And I'll also turn off, well, I'll leave the shrink wrap on, I guess. But if you look right here, these edges kind of look funny, too. They're kind of like clipping through and stuff. And so I'm going to go into edge mode. And if I delete this edge, notice how the face still stays there. Because this is actually all one giant face with extra edges over it. And if we actually go in here, we can delete this edge, delete this edge, delete this edge, and delete this edge, and we still have a face, which means this face is actually an N-gon. So I'm going to delete that face, and then I'm also going to delete this edge, this edge, and this edge, and you can see the same problem was here as well. So we'll go ahead and delete that edge, and then now with this edge, I'm just going to hit F to fill, 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 And then right here, the edges don't match up perfectly, so I'm going to select this one and put a triangle, then fill again, make another triangle, and then fill and fill. And then now when we're in object mode, all of those lines disappeared. So that fixed that. Now, because this is a retopo, I'm just going to delete this mirror modifier for now, and I'm going to apply the shrink wrap, because I think when you have modifiers on, it kind of interferes with texture painting a little bit, so I just want the base mesh without anything. I'm then going to put another mirror modifier back, and I'm going to select this outside edge, and I'm going to first drag it to the left, then I'm going to turn on clipping, and then drag it back to the right, and then now it should be nice and clipped in the center, and everything is joined. I'm then going to turn this off because I feel like painting will be easier if we do it on just one half of the Yoshi. So setting up painting is actually pretty easy, and the scope of this tutorial is not to be a painting tutorial. There's a lot of good tutorials on how to use all the tools, so I'm going to go into just the bare minimum to get started. And then once you get started, that should be a good starting point for you to start to learn, and then you can follow other tutorials and you'll learn a lot more. So this is not going to be a comprehensive painting tutorial. This is literally just going to be, where's the Reddit thread, helping him get the painting set up and working, and then I'll paint the Yoshi just to show you what I can do, but you know, this is not a super detailed painting tutorial. Alright, so it looks like, I'm not sure what was going on here, it looks like he was trying to color the seams or something, and then mix it in with this green color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a texture image node. And you don't have to always load a texture. In this case, we're just going to hit the new button, and this lets you create a brand new texture. And we'll call this Yoshi colors, and we'll make it 2K. I feel like is a good amount. Hit OK. I'm going to put that into where the green would be. And then I'm going to take an input UV node, choose our UV map, and put that into there. Now, the important thing is you click this node. In Blender, whenever you do the painting, it kind of like paints onto whatever texture node you have selected. So we're going to make sure this one is selected. Now, in our UV, we can choose our Yoshi colors, which are just going to be black for now. And on a second monitor, I have some Yoshi reference. So I'm just going to be looking at this on my second screen while I paint. But it's always a good idea to have reference somewhere. And then now we're going to go with this object selected, we're going to go into paint mode. Now the cool thing is that you have these tools here like blur and smudge and clone and a paint bucket, which we're going to start with. So there's two ways you can do this. You can select the paint bucket and you can either go up to this thing and then you have your tool menu here. But I actually don't like that. I feel like it's easier to use this. So if we go to this tool icon, this has all the same settings that you would find here, right? So it has like the fill brush, it has the color picker, it has all the same settings, but I like it down here because it doesn't take up the viewport space. So the first thing we want to do is make sure our fill brush is at 100%, and we're going to go choose a nice Yoshi green. I feel something like there, and you can see as soon as I click the model, because it's a paint bucket, it fills everywhere where there is the UV unmap. So that's nice. Now we're going to go to the brush tool. And the thing with the brush tool is, let's pick white. If I'm zoomed out, it puts that whole circle, and you can see it kind of has a soft edge. But for this cartoony model, we want to make a hard edge. So there's two things I'm going to do. The first thing is I'm going to go down to the fall off, and this will kind of change the shape of your brush. So this will be a lot more like an airbrush, whereas this one would be a lot harder, right? You can see very hard edges, but I don't want it to be quite like that, so I'm going to choose this one, which is a nice balance. Another thing you can do is you can choose Shift F, and this will choose the strength of your brush. So if you do it like, you know, very little, it's a very weak brush, but if you go all the way to the outside edge, it'll be a very strong brush, which is what we want. You can also push F to change your size. So if I'm painting here, and then I can change my size and paint smaller. Of course, if I zoom in, it's going to be painting even smaller relative, so that's a thing to keep in mind. The first thing I'm going to try to do is the eye area. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger and just start painting. So I'm going to go to around here, and then something like this. And I'm painting right now with a mouse, so I will make mistakes. This would probably be easier if I had a drawing tablet. I do have one, but it's not plugged in right now, and I don't feel like plugging it in, so I'm just going to do it with my mouse. But I have a pretty steady hand, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. And as you can see, as I paint this, it adds color to our texture. Now, right here, I don't like how that white kind of spilled over. So here's a trick. You can paint the other color, right? So I want to paint green again to kind of get rid of that. But if I go to this color picker and I click on the eyedropper, if I click, like, let's say here, it gives me one color green. But then if I do it where there's like this highlight, it'll give me a slightly lighter green. That's not what we want. Instead, you click here and you click on your texture, and that will give you the shadeless color of green. So you can always find your exact color that you used before and then go in and repaint colors. So you can use, like, there's a palette system where, for example, I can click here and then I can add the color green. So I'd be able to get back to this color green just by using that palette swatch. But if you forget to add it to your palette swatch, you can always recover the color just by clicking on the 2D texture image. All right, so that looks pretty good for the eyes. Now I'm going to paint a basic Yoshi eye. So we'll start with black, and I'm just going to do something like this. And again, this is not a super in-depth painting tutorial, so I'm just going to kind of go. And then let's get a kind of gray blue, something like that. And also I want to make sure that this brush is set to 100% strength. And maybe I can bring my color up just a little bit. All right, I think that looks good. Then we're going to do another black, which is even smaller. And then we're going to do a light blue, something actually closer to here. And then, so I keep zooming in, I could also shrink my brush. All right, that's good. And then we're just going to take white and put a little highlight right there. So that's good enough for now. I'm not going to worry too much because I do want to get through this relatively quickly. Every time I make one of these videos, I end up taking like several hours. So I'm going to try to make this more digestible for a Greg Blends video. So now he kind of has these white puffy cheeks. And one thing you'll notice is that when you're painting, sometimes when you paint at an angle, it didn't happen that time, but it might happen at some point in this. If you paint at an extreme angle, it'll look kind of weird, but we'll see if that happens. It'll like stretch the area where the paint is put out. All right, and then this comes all the way down to here. And then he kind of has a belly. All right, that's looking pretty good so far. Now you can see I actually accidentally oversprayed a bit up here. So that's what I'm talking about. Like sometimes, you're painting from this angle and the paint looks correct, but then when you look at it from another angle, it's kind of stretched out and oversprayed. So let's go get our green color and kind of fix some of this stuff up here. There we go, that looks pretty good. All right, and then what's next? So there's the white turtle shell. Let's get our white color. And these spikes will become red later, so I'm just going to kind of roughly paint over them. All right, I feel like that's pretty good. Let's go get our red color, and I will add it to our palette, so we'll have it for later. And I'm just, I'm kind of eyeballing the colors. Obviously, if you were doing this for real, you could take your time and do it a little bit more. So I definitely painted too much white here. I think I want to paint the red a little bit more. It's right around there. And then let's go get our green, because I'm looking at like the shape of this lump, which is supposed to be where his shell is. So I definitely went too far with the white. And then let's look at it here. You can see there's kind of like this outline for where that shell should be. So and then there's an example of like kind of, you know, I painted that red from this angle and it looked good, but then when you look at it from another angle, it looks kind of weird. So that's just one of the things to be mindful of when you're texture painting, is kind of keep an eye on how you're painting your angles. So I'm actually just going to deliberately go over here because that's all going to become red soon and it will be fine. Let's go get our red color. And then probably want to fix this right now. All right, get our red color, and then each one of these spikes is red. So I'm just going to quickly go do that. And someone is texting me. Maybe a little bit more right here. All right, and our Yoshi is looking good. Now, should I give him an open mouth? I guess I could, since I have that red color selected. All right, and the last thing, I think we're almost done. We just have to do the shoes. So now the shoes can be tricky, right? Because they're kind of at the bottom. You're going to be at weird angles like this, and if you accidentally paint like that, you'll overspray onto the rest of your texture, which you definitely don't want. So I'm going to show you a trick for that. Basically, go into edit mode. So you're no longer in paint mode, you're in edit mode. And we want to select all of the faces for the feet. So I'm going to go into face mode. And I'm just going to use the brush select tool, and I'm just going to try to select everywhere where there is the shoe. And make sure to get the bottom. And I think that's pretty good. Let me just get these ones as well in case we want them. All right, perfect. Now when we go back into paint mode, nothing has changed, but when you click this button, you'll see that it kind of grays out the rest of the Yoshi, except for where we had the faces selected. So now, if I were to paint, it stops right there. So now, if I'm underneath here and I try to paint, it won't overspray onto the rest of the model. So that's kind of like a primitive masking system. I think there's a way where you can do masking. I'm not sure in texture paint mode. I know you can do it in sculpting. I'm not sure if you can do it in texture paint, but whatever. So let's go get an orange for his shoes, something like this. And it looks like we just want to go... Actually, I want to get a couple more of these faces here. Let me get my circle select out. Oops. And get a couple more of these faces. It's okay if we have a little bit of overlap. All right, maybe these two as well. And that one. Okay. So let's paint. Perfect, we have this. So I just wanted to make sure to get those faces because it looks like his shoe kind of starts here. And then, you know, it kind of goes right around there because you can see this like contours basically like where the shoe is sticking out. So let's follow this around. All right, and now I'm just going to make my brush a little bit bigger so I can go faster and fill out the rest of the shoe. Sometimes you got to get creative with your camera angles. Oh, it looks like I forgot that face, so that's why that one wasn't painting. I technically don't need to do this because I'm going to change the bottom color, but I might as well get it for now. It's painterly, right? Like, you know, build your paint in layers or whatever. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So the final thing is the bottom of his shoes. Let's add this color to our palette just so we have it. And I'm going to also make sure to save a copy because that's always good practice. And let's also get a lighter yellow for the bottom of his shoes. And then we're just going to kind of go in and paint around these. And then we can paint the full bottom. And then just kind of, now that we have it, we'll do it from like a further angle. Just kind of straighten things out a bit. All right, I like that. I'm pretty happy with that. So now you can see what's happened is, let's go back and select everything. We can turn this mode off, in fact, is it's actually filled out a custom texture just for our Yoshi. So one thing that, a lot of people think is like, how on earth do you texture things? Well, if you do a UV unwrap and then you paint like this, and you can paint with textures. For example, instead of just using a regular brush, you can go down in here and add a texture, and then you could paint with an image, for instance. So a lot of times the UVs are just kind of automatically generated, and then when you do your painting, it will stretch and skew them however it needs to. Like, for example, this eye, is stretched over all of these UVs, but in the editor it looks fine because it's unstretched, if that makes sense. So the most critical thing is that when you save your Blender file, like if I were to hit save right now and save a copy, it doesn't save your texture. And you can see right here, right next to the image, there's a little asterisk telling you that it's not saved. So you can hit Alt-S, or you can go Image Save, and then save that PNG, and now that asterisk goes away, and this is saved on disk. So if I were to go into here, here is the PNG that we just painted. So how cool is that? That's pretty much how texture painting in Blender works, and that's what I wanted to show you. So let's now try to do a quick render with this to make sure that everything's working. I'm going to go to my Yoshi, I'm going to turn on the mirror modifier, and that seems to have worked pretty well. Of course, because the UVs are mirrored, they use the same texture data, so that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So he sent me the textures. I think I have to reload this one, so let's go into Yoshi and go into Fabric, regular 3K, Fabric Displacement, I think is the one. And then let's bring this down, move this over, and go into rendered mode. Now he is using cycles because in order to use displacement, your material has to be in cycles, and you have to go down here to settings and say displacement and bump. It's a little bit dark in here, so I'm going to go to the world settings and just bring up our background world so we can see a little bit better. And that looks awesome. Everything is working. So the texture that we painted is already hooked up to the nodes. It uses this mix node. I guess he's using the seams to kind of draw a black line somewhere. I don't really see it happening in the material, but I'll leave that to him to figure out how he wants to deal with that material node. But it looks like mission accomplished. And I think you can even paint. Let's see, can you? Yeah, it's painting, but I think you have to, I think you have to save the texture image. So if I hit save, will it do it? Solid. Look what I did to poor Yoshi. Okay, so you can't paint in cycles mode. You just have to, okay, I guess we have to save the texture and then switch back to rendered, and then there we go. Yeah, so that's really it, and that looks awesome. So yeah, so now you know how to paint textures in Blender. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good YouTube stuff, and I will be back with another movie prop, and I think this is actually going to be 2 videos in one day. Earlier today, I uploaded the Fruity Loops video, which I had worked on a couple days ago and finally finished editing today. But this is a quick video. We did it in 25 minutes. This is probably the shortest episode of Let's Help I've ever recorded. Only 25 minutes to paint this texture. So This is just a quickie that I'm going to upload, and then, yeah, I'll be back to some more regular content soon. So, ta-ta for now.